Welcome to Aboriginal Art in America, a podcast where each week we spend a few minutes with the work of an Indigenous Australian artist. This week, Nikki Cumston, director of the Kluge-Ruhe Aboriginal Art Collection, sat down with Robert Fielding to talk about his recent exhibition, Tjukurpa Handle It, and his time as the 2025 Artist in Residence at the Kluge-Ruhe. They also discuss how Robert's unique cultural background shapes his work and his thoughts on the role of art in connecting communities.
My name is Nikki Cumston, and I am the director of the Kluge-Ruhe Aboriginal Art Collection of the University of Virginia. And I moved here from Australia at the end of May this year, 2025, from my hometown of Adelaide on Kaurna country. My family are Barkindji people from the Barka, which is the name in our language for the river, which is known in Western terms as the Darling River. And I'm here today with the wonderful Robert Fielding, our artist in residence at Kluge-Ruhe at the moment, and we're going to have a conversation. Robert, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Robert Fielding. I come from Mimli community. Mimli is a small remote community on the APY lands. That's the Arnongo-Pinjara, Yankunytjatjara lands, way up in the far north of west of South Australia. We're about 750 miles from the closest city, Adelaide. With nothing but country between us, deep in desert country, the land out there is strong, red dirt, white bark, rocky ridge, and underneath all of that, Tjukurpa. The stories, the laws, the song, and the dance, the spirit. You don't just look at this place, you feel it quite, but it speaks, and it's where I come from. Not just where I live, but where we all belong. So to be here on behalf of, Mimli Magu Arts, it's all about the heart of our community. It's not just an art centre, it's a cultural engine room, the heartbeat. It is where we gather, we learn, we pass on things. Every canvas, every print, every sculpture that comes out of that place carries the voices of our old people and the hands and the next generation. We're working in printmaking and sculptures and photography and always on country, Manda Mil Milpa. Whether we're burning, melting or casting or exposing images under the sun, this is what we work with and about connection, about pride and about power. This is where we practice, this is where we started, and this is where the next generations we carry. Tjukurpa Mil Milpa, Manda Mil Milpa, Tjukurpa Handle It. So this is where we come from and what Mimli Magu Arts is, and to be honoured to come to Kluge-Ruhe and to represent my people, Palya. Thank you.
Robert, your exhibition at Kluge-Ruhe at the moment is made up of prints, paintings, sculptures, working across many different mediums. Do you want to tell us a little bit about, maybe start with the sculptures. Tell us about those works.
So the sculptures that I've worked with within this art practice is, Janpira, the flower buckets, it's telling you the stories of the flour, the sugar, the tea leaf and the rations that was introduced to Indigenous people at that time before I was born. And it's about the kulara, the spear, and how the spear is speared through the buckets, and that, we as of today are suffering from the necessities of that was given to us about, flour, sugar, tea, and diabetes and health issues arise from that. And it's about the canvases also. It's about telling you the stories, and it's about a snippet of telling the story of who we are, where we come from, and what Mimli community means, and what that story is. But it's a story about you as an individual, telling you a story through your father's eyes of stolen generations, of policy, of assimilation, of, taken, given, never returned. But it's personal, but it's also telling you the actual events that took place in the late 1890s, early 1920s, and that it's about forgiveness for me. You cannot live through the eyes of your father. And it's about you as an individual, forgiveness. And this is what this exhibition's about. It's about Tjukurpa Handle It. It's about, this is what happened, but this is about how you forgive through the eyes of your father.
And do you want to tell us a little bit about your father's situation?
So my father was born 1928, and, he was removed from his mother, a full-blood Aboriginal woman, in 1931. This child, he was only 4-year-old. And to taken from his mother that was suckling on his mother's ipi or ama or wilacha, breast, and to have a white father that did not acknowledge him or embraced him as his child. So in that time of era, they were removed. Not only him, but many were taken from the provenance of where he come from, of Granite Down, and, taken to the United Missionary, as you'll see within my artwork, the prints that I've also done, and it's about Kantijangu. You'll see my grandmother's name on there. You'll see the grandfather's name, how these people were removed, and that my father was one of those children that was removed. But when my father lived in that institution in 1948, he signed a document of, exemption. The dog collar, how sad that document is. And to see it in 23, that my father signed this document, a 21-year-old man, and how sad it is for one not to reconcile with the fruits of the womb of his mother, to know that he was born as a bastard. I am not a bastard because I have a mother and father. So this is how I'm telling my story through art and actual events that took place. And my father never spoke of hate. My father never spoke of anger. My father never spoke of his situation. So I cannot fabricate what my father had went through. So this is what this exhibition's about also. It's about letting go of, transparency, like working with Canberra Glassworks, that I had the opportunity to see the glass, the transparency, to see through and to forgive. Like I'm sitting here now and I'm observing this person that's sitting and watching and with an earphone on. It's about, forgiveness. It's about you cannot hold a grudge against something that you was not part of. So I live for the moment, I live for now, I live for 1969. But I also acknowledge that 1996 was only 69-year-old that my father died. A lonely person that never reconciled with the fruits of his mother's land and country. But as we say on our mother's side, there's also images of my mother's Afghan, heritage, Islam. We were born of pride, which is, I don't know, it's very hard also to comprehend, but that was respect, love for all, hatred for none. So with my dad, that's why this exhibition is about truth, it's about accepting, it's about actual events, it's about 1957, the GAN, the mosque, the Aboriginal people that are standing up within my posters, and respect.
And Robert, on your mother's side of the family, there's the descendancy from the Afghan cameleers who arrived in Australia in the 1800s. And I know that you did some research to work through and to find some imagery to include in the prints that you have in the exhibition at Kluge-Ruhe. Do you want to talk a bit about that, what you found when you were looking through the archive?
So what I found within the archives of South Australia, and, there was a book called, I think it was Gillan and Spencer or Gillan, It's about my great-grandmother, that was on the second to third page of this wonderful book of the early anthropologist. And, to see a full-blood Aboriginal woman there sitting with her sister, an Aranda woman, that I was born of acacia, acacias, I was born of flowers, I was born of, royalty as a woman of our country. But to have this man that come in traditional clothing and turban and attire and language and a beast, an animal, a camel, to be introduced into our family, that, what history I have and what knowledge I have, that my grandmother, her father was Namath Ali Khan, and that he was an Afghan pioneer that came to this country and married a full-blood Aboriginal woman of Western Narunda, of Hermannsburg, and, they had 3 children, Miriam Khan and Rocky Khan, which was Ramat Khan and Akbar Khan, through first marriage, but he had also had another daughter by the name of Bertha Khan, and had another daughter by the name of Gulbegum Khan. And that, Namath Khan is in my prints, and, that I am the descendant of third generation of Islam, and, that my religion is also in there with the 1957 Ghan, the railways, the Ghan, and the Mari Mosque, and how important that trade and that port where they would have came in through Port Augusta and then went to Beltana, then Freena, then Mari, Hergot Springs, and then went to Oodnadatta, from Oodnadatta to along the old Ghan line, and then to Fink River, running water, and how important that they went up to Hermannsburg. And this man was also interpreted in my prints, and how important that religion of Christianity and Islam and Afghan and, Indian descendant, which is, Pakistan, Lahore, and Aboriginal, that I am proud to be Aboriginal, that I am born from two prestigious women of our country, full blood, that I was born from black velvets of my country.
Within your work, if we want to look at, for example, the painting that you have in the exhibition, and how through the printmaking process you really pushed that process by incorporating, the materials that you've got in the painting, if you want to talk a bit about them, and then how you then worked on top of that with the screen, because that's a really interesting way of bringing in the different mediums and just how that challenged the printmaker you were working with, if you want to tell us a bit about that.
So what has given me this opportunity, first, prior to all this, that I had a beautiful man by the name of Trent Walter, and, that I had the opportunity to work with him for over 8 and 9 years, I think it was. And I pushed boundaries many a times. And, where I come from, Tutu, Alta, Pirampa, these are the pigments that I beautify my body with through our lore and culture, L-O-R-E for that. But, it's about how one beautifies themselves with regalia, and how one pushed the boundaries of printmaking, that cobalt blue that I introduced within this print. And that it was so coarse, this canvas, this screen printing, and it was like, Robert, we can't do it. I said, there's no such thing as can't. Blue is water. Cobalt blue is a representation of water, resource, life, live, love, respect, honor, acknowledge. And, it's the Ilkari, the skies. And it is Kapi, water also. But within that canvas, there was Alta, which is the black from charcoal, from fire. And there's the white, which is Unu, which is from Parka, or from Alta, Unu, the ashes of fire, and, you mix it with pigment. But the beauty of Tutu, T-U-T-U, ochre, which we come from the pigments of the earth, and you use it within your artwork and screen printed onto that with cobalt blue. You was breaking boundaries of the respect of a screen print, that I screen printed quite a few until it, deteriorated, and that was it. Finished. But, all this opportunity came from Maitland Regional Gallery, that I had this opportunity to showcase there, and, to fill in an application for Kluge Roo, and, this is why I'm sitting here today. And, that I had many people that has worked alongside me, and many capillaries and muscles that make up my artwork, and respect and honor. And that is what these canvases are. It's about respect, and it's about truth, and it's about telling, storytelling, but most of all, it's about a personal journey of reflecting to forgiveness of Australian history, Indigenous history, stolen generation, where you'll see other words also.
And the image that you've screen printed onto that painting is from a site, a very important site for Yankunytjatjara people at Paralpi.
So with Paralpi, Paralpi, it's a story of education. It's a story of teaching and, between Pirampa and Arnong, meaning black and white, and sharing the story of Maku Tjukurpa. I don't own that story, but I don't own that place, but I've been there since 1998, and, to be part of that and to go there when all the elders was alive. It's about storytelling. It's about education. It's about teaching. It's about accepting. It's about acknowledging. It's about embracing two worlds that these children from prestigious schools have the opportunity to see the way that Arnong will live and the way that these stories of Paralpi, Maku Tjukurpa and Wananpi Tjukurpa and Antara Tjukurpa, that they are still thousands and thousands and thousands of year-old Yankanjara Tjukurpa or Wapa stories, and that I've had the opportunity to be accepted and to have grandchildren and granddaughter of this culture, that I have to maintain that stories that we've been taught, that I am the neighbouring community of Granite Downs, and that I am Yankanjara, that I am Wapa, W-A-P-A-R, which is similar and same to Tjukurpa, T-J-U-K-U-R-P-A, that it is one. But Paralpi is where my son Zachariah and Michael Ross performed for Australia in 2023, the Eurovision contest in Malmo. And that song was played there. Not that song, but it was another artwork of mine, which is also known as Milkali Kojo, One Blood, that we as individuals are no different to one another. It's only the miri, the M-I-R-I, the skin, that is a difference. But that is how it's all related to Paralpi, and how black-white unity, love, respect, honor, love for all, hatred for none, but how respect must come through music, song, dance, and actual events of, to me, this is my question and my answer, forgiveness. So in, telling and talking, to be here now to understand America, I had no knowledge. Everything that I've been given, everything that I've witnessed of America has been, through movies, which is quite sad. We love American movies. Honest to God, we've been brainwashed as Indigenous people of our region and of our country and of our states or our territory. But, to come here and to see the First Nations of this country, there's so many diversities of, African Americans, but foremost the Indian nation and the other people that make up this country. But, I've seen and watched in the short period of time that I've been here, but I'll read, it's an honor to be here in Virginia on Monacan land, and to be welcomed to the Bear Mountain, and to meet and to be representatives of the mountain and of Monacan. Thank you to Sue Elliott and the Chief Lua Parish. It meant a lot to sit alongside these people and to listen and to share their space and their story. This is only a snippet of what we've learnt and what we've seen in this short period of time, the Monacans. So it's also about standing on Monacan land. Hearing about the history and the strength of the people reminded me of how deeply connected the First Nations of these communities are and where they came from across this world. We carry different languages, different ceremonies, but the heart of it, our connection to land, to ancestors, to the stories that sometimes we will share, sometimes they do not share. But when we sit together like this, we learn, we heal, we remember we're not alone. We're part of something bigger, something global, something ancient that still lives within everybody of this continent. Like we say, and what I say within my art, from the earth we come, to the earth we return. The Ilkari, the heaven, the sky, we forget that is the man that looks upon the earth.
Do you want to go back a bit and talk about the young men that you've been working with in community and supporting them to be empowered to make work, and how they came along with you to Maitland?
So with this opportunity that I've had, I've worked with Australia's top, sculpture comb. I've worked with Canberra Glassworks. And I've worked with Australia's top, printmaker, and I'm starting to work with Australia's top glassmaker also, that it's an Indigenous person by the name of Ricky Martin. Not the singer Ricky Martin, but the Arnungal Ricky Martin of Melbourne, Bunurong country. And how important it is that it's about empowering men. Men do not have a voice. So to have this art space, I had two wonderful men, Mr. Kumana Williams and Mr. Kumana Martin. And they were my legacies, my teachers, my space, my knowledge, my gatekeepers. And, I learned so much from them by sharing that space. And there was 3 of us in that room at that time. And, then they deceased, they passed away. I had that room to myself. And I had the whole length of that rectangular room to myself. And then we had men starting to come. I was encouraging men to come to the art centre to see and to work. And, that is the Kurudu, K-U-T-U, the Kurudu, the heartbeat of all communities, the art centre. To create art is to make art. And art is about sharing, Mimli community story. And when the men started to come in, it was, oh. But it was a wonderful feeling. But these men, then I shared my opportunity of what I had that was many years of hard work. And, you have the likes of, Desmond, Shane, Mark, Richard, and Walter Hampton, and Cyril Hampton, and, Chisel, and, his sons. And so there was a workshop that we done the other day with Sculpture Co. And, that these men came in and we made works from the earth, and we made works from chrome tires, we made works from glass, we burnt them with Australia's top glassmaker, and we melted them down, and the melting point. And, it was about giving these men that opportunity to create their art by telling their story. Men are seen differently within our community, but art will give you a story of every individual empowerment of, oh, my dad created this. My uncle created this. My Malanpa, my Korta, my Kamaru, my Kaja, my Jammu. How important that these men have a voice. They have a name. They have a name other than English. Jammu, Kaja, Korta, Malanpa, Ogari. And, it's about creating their story through a man's point of view of respect and a man's point of view of, telling their story. Whatever they done in their previous past, it's not about that. It's not about your past. It's about now. Kwari, ngola, irati. Irati is the past. Kwari is the present, the future. But by creating this body of work, it is about men, empowering men to rise above, like the eagle. I'm in an eagle country, but, it's about, for these men to rise above the, what do we call in our language, walayaro, the eagle. But it's about, for them to say, I made this with other men, and that there's no influence by women, and that these men can work alongside one another and to build their relationship. If they had a conflict, there's no conflict when creating art. It's about enjoyment.
And that's important, where in community there can be limited opportunities for people. And so the Art Centre is a place where people have a chance to have a voice and a way to be able to make work in order to make statements. And that's something that you've enabled these people to be able to do, because prior to them, they didn't feel comfortable coming to the Art Centre until they were led, and you led them. And I think that's something that, for someone to actually show you what's possible, that is a true gift that you've given them.
So in my words, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But you know what? It's not enough just to make work for yourself. You just got to make space for others, especially the young fellas. That's why we built the Wati studio in our community, like I said just a minute ago. But, it's about what we've done in our hometown of Mimli community. I've seen what happens when you had a man a tool, a camera, a chisel, a brush, and you say, "Here, this one's for you." You see, the story starts to rise. It rises, like I said just a minute ago. You see the pride of the individuals. These young men and the elderly men, some older than me, carry heavy stories of grief, pressure, but their silence through their art is what helps them carry. To carry their stories in different ways, not to forget but to transform. That's the power of creating art, and that's the power of creating men to rise and to stand in unity, in line of, acceptance. We're not just making prints, we're making pathways for one another. It's about ngapachi ngapachi. Ngapachi ngapachi means 50-50, Ngapartji. It means we walk together side by side. These men, these women, but it's about men, it's about empowerment. You give, I give. That's how we lived, and that's how we've learnt. Like I said just a minute ago, Mr. Williams and Mr. Martin, and from Trent Walter, and from Mimli community, Nick, and every one of these men that stood and came across, to the art centre night and day, and nothing to do happens alone, It's about how men can create when we say, ngapachi, ngapachi. We're talking about real collaborations. We're talking about generations across cultures, across time. It's a circle. It's about uankara, chongo, ngale, churta, malpa. These are the words of together, one. We come together, not a straight line, and that a circle is about when everyone comes together. That men are empowered, we have a place, and it's a one where we rise together, side by side. Ngapachi, ngapachi. Empowerment to our men. Wati, W-A-T-I. So back to me as an artist, back to me as a person, back to me as representative of the Kluge Roo, that my art begins and ends with people who came before me, people that came from other parts of the four corners of my country. It's about the old people of my community, though, that I am representing here today at Kluge Roo. It's about Mimli. They taught me that the land isn't just something we stand on. It's something that we hold on to. It is the trees, the rocks, the wrecks of the roads, the cars, the hills, the mountain is full of memory. My elders taught with silence, with presence, and with reception and repetition. I'm here today because they carried me. Even when I didn't know I was being carried, every mark I made within this exhibition at Kluge Roo is every mark I make for them, every mark that I made for my dad by telling his story as a descendant of stolen generation. Every time I say Tjukurpa handle it, I mean carry the story with care. I bind and wrap my work with my own tape, Tjukurpa handle it. Because it is heavy, but it is sacred, and I don't get away. And it's my way of, telling me that we can do it. We can do it together, and together we stand. But when I was sitting outside of the gallery today, of the cottage of, Kluge Roo, and I looked at this wonderful writing that was standing before me, and it spoke about Kluge Roo. So I sat in silence and said and wrote, at Kluge Roo, we dream of a world where Indigenous voices are heard, where stories flow like songlines, and art and cultures are cherished as living treasures. We come from the four corners of our country, Australia, carrying memories and beauty and spirit, and by sharing with America our cultures and stories. We walk together in respect and in celebration. So, with deep gratitude, we honor Mimli Magu Art Center, the keepers of memory, the makers of beauty, the guides of spirit. Thank you from Robert Fielding, and thank you for this opportunity of speaking in America and on Monacan nations and lands and other, Cherokee people of this space of 7. And, thank you. And, thank you to Nikki, and thank you to, the team of 5 of Kluge-Ruhe, and how they've given us this hospitality of seeing the First Nations of this region, to see where other people came from. We're born from 248, 1632, and 64 and 128. So if you don't know your origin and provenance of who you are, we're all looking and searching to find out who we are. Kala Pala Salam Alaikum. Peace be upon you. Love for all, hatred for none.
That was Nikki Cumston in conversation with Robert Fielding. You can learn more about the exhibition and Robert Fielding's work by visiting kluge-ruhe.org or by attending the exhibition Tjukurpa Handle on display at the Kluge-Ruhe through February 15th, 2026. Kluge-Ruhe is free to visit and open Tuesdays through Sundays. You can even take a free tour each day at 10:30 a.m. or 1:30 p.m. More information at kluge-ruhe.org.